Welcome to All Things Social Security. Enjoy your video. Good morning. We're still talking about the function report. I should say good morning, afternoon, or evening because it is actually afternoon here. The day has flown. I had a hearing earlier. It went very well. So don't have a result yet. As you know, we don't really get results usually during the hearing. They happen sometimes, but typically not. Okay, so we're talking about the function report. I'm still going on and on about number 5. Here's another little thing I noticed about function report number 5, which is a huge mistake. A lot of times, when it tells you what your conditions do, causing you to not be able to work. And our previous video was about the interpretation many people have is that they're only referring to their past work. And that's not it at all. And so you go into the details of what you really need to be thinking about when you answer that question. A lot of times you'll see the response, it'll just say something vague like, my pain prevents me from working. I can't work. And it'll be that like vague, it means nothing. And it doesn't really describe why you can't work because people work in pain all the day, all the time. So there's more to it than just a blanket statement like that. Let's step all over my computer. So you really want to tie your specific limitations you have from physical or mental capacities. And again, I point you to number 20, which is a few pages in for you, to see what some of those tasks may be in the broad sense. There are actually more you can find, but those are kind of like the broadest level of it. And you want to tie those limitations to specific reasons why certain functioning tasks have consequences that make it impossible to do it either at all, do it more than briefly, do it more than a short distance, or not do it repetitively. Like even if you can do it, you can't do it repetitively. Maybe you can do it twice if you do it, early in the day and late in the day, or maybe twice in a row, but then you're like, got a sore arm or whatever, whatever your particular impairment is. So you want to be kind of specific. So let's say it is a pain thing. Let's say pain, your back pain grows when you sit more than a short period. Some people will say, I can't sit a really long time. It's like, okay, well, what's your definition of a long time? Number one. I mean, some people think sitting for 20 minutes is a long time. Some people are saying, I can't sit for 8 hours. And if it's only 8 hours that you can't sit, well, that leaves a whole world of sit down jobs open for your disposal because many jobs could be 7 hours instead of 8, 6 instead of 7, So you got it. You got to be a little bit more specific. I would literally point to the threshold where you go from can comfortably to cannot comfortably. So look at it that way. Sometimes people look at it as all or nothing. Well, I lifted my grandkid and he's like 60 pounds, so I can lift 60 pounds. You know, that's that's just not realistic in terms of doing it all day in an 8-hour day. Because remember, we're talking about a work day. So would you be able to hold that 60-pound grandkid for 8 hours of an 8-hour day? How about for 6 hours of an 8-hour day? So the 60 pounds that you could do once, or as they say, adrenaline sometimes makes people be able to do way more than that. That's not sustainable for any amount of a day, right? So you have to look at it with more specificity, I guess is the only way I can put it. So I would say test yourself, sit down, and the way you describe it is if it starts hurting in 10 or 15 minutes, your lower back, your hips, it could be your knees, it could be your feet start swelling and get a little prickly. You want to describe it as the pain is getting beyond discomfort, more into pain after 10 or 15 minutes of sitting. Be specific. People leave it out all the time. There's a thing well, you'll see it on section 20, but you can throw it into question number 5, the one we're working on now, right? Following instructions. If you find that you are reading instructions, maybe you're repairing something at home, or maybe back when you used to work, you were finding this to be happening a little bit and it was a little concerning, and that you have to read written instructions multiple times. You miss steps sometimes when you're reading them. And how about with oral instructions? Are you able to remember them when they say, hey, I need you to go X, Y, Z, A, B, C. Can you get that done for me today? Are you going to be able to remember all the parts of the instructions of what you're supposed to do. If that's troublesome, you could say, my memory was not working well enough for me to follow instructions reliably, or I have to reread instructions so many times and I still miss steps. So these are, it's almost like section 5 can have a lot of the things that are going to be asked about later in the report, but here you're actually putting them into more of a narrative. Now, granted, I always say they'll give you a little bit of space for a reason, guys. Try not to be flowery. Don't use full sentences. If you have a lot to say, just get to the phrase, you know, severe pain after 10, 15 minutes sitting. Or it could be severe pain after 15 minutes sitting, 10 minutes walking, 20 minutes standing. That way you can concise it up. Don't say a whole sentence for each one. You don't have to do that, and you're going to run out of space. Cognitive issues are a big deal, particularly for the over 50 crowd. And this is assuming that we're not having a full-blown, complete mental claim where someone is, this close to being institutionalized for, severe schizophrenia or other similarly severe mental illnesses. Because as you know, it's got to be pretty severe like that in order to win on a mental health claim. When you're over 50 and you have other rules that come into play, that's not really the case. It could be lower mental, but now you have to have physical. All right. Emotionalism, emotional lack of control, that can be a big thing that you could throw into number 5. For instance, if you are not very good anymore at taking constructive criticism, maybe at your last job, you were tearful when your supervisor critiqued your work and it wasn't perfection, and you fell into tears in front of your supervisor. That would be probably something that if it happens more than once is going to be noted. And there is a whole idea about if we have difficulty interacting appropriately with supervisors. That's a pretty big deal. Same is true with interacting with coworkers. If you have a very short temper, a very short fuse, which can stem from pain, it could also stem from a mental health struggle you might be having. That is a big deal because that will affect workplace morale. And if you've gotten written up about it, it's a good sign it's happening. So don't take those write-ups now after the fact, now that you're not working, as being entirely negative. Those are things you can actually put in your function report. There's a section later on you're going to see about where you ever terminated due to difficulties getting along with other people on the jobs. You don't necessarily have to have been terminated for it, but if you got wrote up for it or had a speaking to about it, and of course, if you just simply notice that you were lipping off to coworkers, getting irritated and saying things that were probably not professional on the job. I mean, technically on the job, we're supposed to be civil and respectful to our coworkers at all times. So if you find that you're losing your cool, truly irritable with people, that's not really conducive to a healthy work environment. And it's not helping your other the coworkers probably have their experience at work be as good as it could be either. So it's very, very much a big deal when someone is not able to act appropriately because they could be impulsive, they could be moody, could be a mood disorder. And of course, in a more minor sense, it can happen just because of pain. You don't have to have any mental health issues, generally speaking, but pain makes us all irritable. It does, particularly if it's not pain for one moment, but a chronic pain that's really affecting us day to day. So those kind of things affect our ability to work. The dogs are driving me crazy. I have to tell you, I cannot wait to be dogless. I got about probably 5 or 6 years to go. All of the things that we're talking about in terms of how you describe them in number 5. And again, you're going to see them more individually throughout the report elsewhere, but this is where people forget about them in number 5. And they just talk about those bigger, broader things, like I was saying, or their past job. You want to get to the nitty gritty. If you have some specificity that would be kind of really, really stellar that you could include. I mean, let's say when you lift with your arm, you can lift a gallon of milk, but if you do it more than say 3 times, your arm might actually collapse. Let's say you have, I don't know what that would be, but like it's not like a dislocation, but it can't withstand doing that more than 1 or 2 times, and then you actually cause a more long-term damage to it. You could say something like that, like I don't even lift a gallon of milk because if I end up lifting something like that more than a few times, I'm at risk of blah blah blah. And hopefully that blah 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 is in your medical records, and that's going to tie back to it. What else? Going back to the emotional symptoms, if you find yourself more reclusive, find yourself not being able to get out of the house and make it to appointments, and it's not because of laziness, it's because of a really deep-seated aversion. Maybe you're starting to get the sweat, and it's almost like an anxiety attack at the thought of leaving the house. That is something that could be included in number 5 too. So I want you to always, when you're doing number 5, to look at, we actually go back and forth. When we're helping someone do it, we actually look at some of the later questions and then make sure they're reflected in number 5. If they're pivotal, yeah, I think that's probably enough for today. Just there's so many things to look at. I think number 5 should probably be one of the questions that take you the longest. Probably number 20 does too, but once you have one of them done, it kind of rolls right into the other. So it's almost like you use one for the other, and it saves yourself stress and time. So, all right, guys, that is enough for number 5 for now. I will talk to you later. There's a little bit more to go on it, but we're not going to do it today. Bye-bye now.